Hello, I'm John Tickles, and welcome to this single awareness episode of Remote RPGs. Yes, Valentine's Day has gone and passed, so to celebrate my eternal loneliness, let's play a great RPG that focuses on a coming-of-age story and young love. Lunar the Silver Star. Yeah, I kinda noticed that my last 4 reviews were newer games, so let's get back to the Sega CD. Or rather the PSP remake, because I'm too cheap to buy the other versions. I picked up the most accessible version because I was thinking about you guys. Yeah, that's it. The Lunar series is criminally underknown, and the first game, Lunar the Silver Star, and the second one, Lunar Eternal Blue, are some of the most memorable RPGs I've ever played, and for good reason. This is punctuated by the fact that both games were released on the shit-tacular fuckfest that was the Sega CD, but still managed to sell pretty well, and had many positive points including voice acting and cutscenes. This was 1992, people, and the game was way ahead of its time. You'll hear me say that a lot. The Lunar series as a whole hasn't been doing too well though, especially with the absolute failure on the DS, Lunar Dragon shit, and a promise that a third installment was in development back in '98. Anyway, the original game was released in '92 on the Sega CD by Game Arts, the same company who did another one of my favorites, Grandia. But Lunar the Silver Star was re-released 4 times. Silver Star Complete on the PS1 in '96, a piss-poor GBA release, Lunar Legend, and the PSP version, released in 2009 by Xseed. I say the PS1 version was probably sufficient, but these constant remakes at least keep the Lunar series going, and make it open to more gamers, so I'm somewhat appreciative, but give me Lunar 3. Throughout the versions, there are many minor differences in the story, some music, the voice acting has changed, graphics obviously, etc. However, the PSP has something that's completely unforgivable. They don't include the incredible Sega CD intro. I'd feel like doing some aerobics, if I had muscles. Alright, so the premise. The game follows Alex, a young boy on his journey to become Dragon Master, by finding the 4 mystical dragons to save his childhood friend, Luna, a young orphan with mysterious powers, from an emperor who wants to take over the world.
Of course!
And that's basically it. Now, come on, keep in mind that this was 1992, and the journey actually makes it really compelling, as the detailed story is pretty good for a 20-year-old game and still holds up today. There were actually a lot of interesting plot twists, especially one only on the Sega CD version, and it's still really memorable even though I knew I was playing a relatively old game. It's a story about love, maturity, and friendship. Really basic and cheesy stuff that's actually done really well, and it's just plain fun. There aren't many dark twists or anything, it's a feel-good RPG. And one if you're in the mood for that kind of thing. The game takes place in a world called Lunar, as basically the moon was giving Earth-like qualities, and you can actually see Earth from the moon's point of view in this game, making the premise pretty much like an interesting science fiction novel. So, before the journey begins, it's time for the character rundown. You have Alex, the mostly silent protagonist with a fetish for sweaty men with big swords. Nope, not much to say here. Luna, Alex's childhood friend and love interest, who's headstrong and motherly, but isn't really much more than the typical damsel in distress for a good chunk of the quest. Jessica's a tomboy and stubborn daughter of a legendary hero, who's in training to be a priest. And she's actually pretty funny in terms of how she has different personalities for her family and then her friends. Mia, yet another daughter of a legendary hero, seeing a little pattern here, the gentle and soft-spoken magician with minor self-confidence issues, and she's not that memorable. Kyle, the wisecracking bandit and a drunk, who also happens to be the only brown character in the game. Oh, Game Arts, you racist pricks. Fortunately, they redeemed themselves because Kyle is easily the most memorable character in the game, and definitely my favorite because how original and just hilarious he is. The complete opposite of Kyle is Remus, the tubby white kid who's greedy and annoying. kinda like Pokey from Earthbound. I swear he would be the character that betrays me, but no, he's just there being a fat capitalist pig. And finally, Null. No, I said Null. Anyway, he's an annoying character that's pretty good for comic relief, but you know he's only there because every RPG has to have a ridiculously cute little bastard following your party around. And yep, that covers all the major characters.
Objection! You're lying!
Fine, you brought this great evil upon yourselves, remember that. There's Nash.
Hey there, peasants! My name's Nash. I'm a third-year apprentice from the Magic Guild of Bane, renowned for its rich history and tradition. Since this forest is filled with all kinds of terrible traps, just make sure you watch your step, okay?
Jeez, man, can you get any more flamboyant? I mean, the only thing that would make him more annoying is... Oh no, I thought it.
Your apprentice from the Magic Guild of Bane, renowned for its rich history and tradition. Since this forest is filled with all kinds of terrible traps, just make sure you watch your step, okay?
Oh man, if I had ears, they would be bleeding right now. So yeah, overall the characters in Lunar are actually pretty good, as their interactions and distinct personalities are what drive the game. I especially like the villain story, but I'm not going to get too deep into that because it gets pretty muddy between the versions. The main party all go through some pretty tough struggles, actually develop, and make the 20-hour-ish game a blast with some really excellent dialogue. Overall, it was a really excellent translation by Working Designs. The NPC dialogue itself was really entertaining too. It even reminded me of the genius dialogue in Earthbound, and I'm not kidding. All of this in a 1992 RPG. Even though it's been retranslated a couple of times, it still stands that Lunar the Silver Star had a great story that stands today, as the writing was ahead of its time. My favorite place was this floating city of Vane. Yeah, I'm sure that giant magical floating city will be completely intact by the end of the game. Oh wait, it's an RPG. Everything has to explode. The only complaint I had about exploration was the overworld map, which made the game feel much smaller and more linear as you move from line to line, place to place. Sure, you could say Chrono Trigger had an overmap, but there was just still so much to explore and secrets to find there too. But look at Grandia. It had an overworld map too, but had so much places to explore. In terms of graphics, the settings are all diverse and colorful, as the PSP does a great job of doing the graphics for a 20-year-old game while keeping an old school feel. My favorite graphic is Alex's multi-slash attack. Man, I could watch that a million times. I also love the use of anime cutscenes. For the most part, they were shown as introductions when you met characters, or when you saw a new place, to make the game feel three-dimensional and just more real in your mind. I gotta mention that was also a really annoying maze to get to the final boss that wasn't too hard, but just felt kind of insulting and time-consuming. Also, they cut off access to the rest of the world after entering the final dungeon, which isn't rare for an RPG, but I guess you really aren't missing that much. Of course, there's the battle system, which is pretty good despite being a little simple by today's standards. Like Earthbound or Chrono Trigger, you see the enemies on screen, adding a whole new depth to just running around, but I'm pretty sure random battles were a problem in the older versions. The battles themselves are basic, but still pretty fun and require some strategy. The main deviation from the classic format is that the characters can only move so far during a turn, so if they don't reach the enemy, then their turn is pretty much wasted, meaning that you have to play out how you move your units across the field. You can also control up to 5 characters at once, meaning that battles can feel a little slow, but it stays fun because of all the options you have. The only major complaint I have about the battles is that they were a little easy. I don't recall seeing the game over screen too much, and not at all in the final battle. So if you didn't act like Shinji Ikari and run away from all your battles like a little bitch, then you really had nothing to worry about in this game. Of course, it goes without saying that the story is the main highlight of this game. But I do have a few questions pertaining to Alex's family. Like, how come Alex's parents look like every other NPC? Look at his dad. He looks like all the other NPCs. Alex, looks like everyone's doing your mom. And that's another good point. This RPG protagonist actually has two parents. That's so rare. Like, think about Chrono Trigger. What happened to Chrono's dad? He probably left when he saw that kid's outrageous hairstyle and said, I'm not paying for the gallons of gel that boy needs. Or Ness's dad, who's always out on business trips, but giving his son boatloads of money. Yeah, I'm going out on a limb here and saying male prostitute. To add to this weirdness, Luna was orphaned and raised as Alex's stepsister since they were really young. So isn't it kind of weird that they hook up in the end? You know, it's alright, Alex. You already met the in-laws. All of them, apparently. The music in the game is outstanding. I heard all the versions, except the GBA version, had good music, but the PSP is the only one I have a lot of experience with. But seriously, there's some really great stuff here, particularly the battle music and some other themes. The pieces range from many beautiful ocarina pieces to fast-paced trumpet melodies, to make it really memorable as it carries the game's emotions and upbeat attitudes. The only thing it's lacking is a really sad piece of music that is usually my favorite from RPG to RPG, but this is forgivable if you consider the tone of the game. My favorite pieces were A Boy Going the Distance, A Door to Adventure is Open, and hell, even the boat song, or Wind Nocturne, was pretty good, even if it was sappy. The main composer, Noriyuki Iwadare, had some great work here, as well as in the Grandia series and even the Phoenix Wright series. The voice acting was also pretty good, as the characters sounded just like I imagined them to, but that isn't always a good thing. So why didn't Lunar catch on as much as it had the right to? Well, the Sega CD never really caught on, and on the PS1 it did good, but I argue it could have done better if it didn't suffer from Earthbound syndrome, where the developers pack in extra stuff with the game, hoping that it'll help it sell, but instead that deters people from buying it because of the price. Lunar for the PS1 came with 4 discs and a world map, driving the price a little high. Also, like Earthbound, no one probably knew too much about the American company working designs, and Final Fantasy VII was still years away from blowing away everybody with the RPG genre. Still, thanks to the PSP remake, hopefully this series will catch more attention. But it really doesn't deserve to fall into obscurity. I just wish they would give us a remake of Eternal Blue, but that game's for another time. So in conclusion, this game is pretty linear and basic, but what puts it over the top is the story and the characters that were the heart and focus of the game for the developers. The best way to describe it is as a solid RPG, something that everyone can enjoy. So go and grab it any way you can, except on the Game Boy, as any RPG fan should really play this one because it's excellent, without a doubt. Well, that's it for the review. But I'm still depressed about being all alone in my life. Where is my love? When will my star shine?
It's a trap!
Hold on a second. I don't even have genitals!